Welcome. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to start knitting our Pretty Knitted Coffee Sleeve by Wake Whimsy. For this pattern, we've already talked about what you need, but I've got everything out and ready. The cup I normally use is just this refillable Starbucks cup, and these aren't really insulated, so these little coffee sleeves work perfect for going on here, and I actually use these, so they really do work. But they keep your hands from getting too hot, and if you've got like iced tea or something in here that it's sweating, it keeps your hands from getting wet and cold too. So this knitted sleeve works great for hot. Hello, Prince. Prince is joining us today for our introduction to our finished project. Excuse me, Prince. Move over here. There you go. Okay, so basically what we need is our worsted weight yarn, preferably without a kitty cat on it, but you know, to each their own. So we need our yarn, we need our measuring tape, we need our yarn needle, we need scissors, the row counter or the row counter app. You may or may not need this when you're getting started. It's good to have if you get confused, because it's basically 2 repeating rows in this entire pattern, so it might help you out. We need our number 8 5mm knitting needles. They're straight. And if you want to have your cup handy, it works good because even though our pattern says to make it a certain length, we can actually wrap the project around our cup to make sure it's a good fit for the cup that you're using it for. If you just want to make a generic one for any cup, that's fine too, because these are super stretchy. Anything knit is generally very stretchy. Crochet is a little less stretchy, so I like knitting coffee sleeves just for that. And you can wash them. If you use an acrylic or other synthetic or even cotton type of yarn, you can totally just throw them in the washing machine and they wash up beautifully. I do that too. So I think with our pattern, we've got our needles, we've got our row counter, scissors, needle, measuring tape, and yarn. And I think it's ready for the fun part, so we can totally start our project. We are ready to start our pattern. This is the, let me get back here. This is the knitted coffee sleeve, Pretty Knitted Coffee Sleeve by Wake Whimsy. We downloaded this for free, so thank you to them for providing your free pattern for this adorable little project. Basically, this pattern is super simple. It's great for our beginning project. It is a combination of these 2 rows repeated over and over again until your work measures 8 inches long, or until it fits your cup. So that we will kind of get to once we complete this project. So we're going to do this in 2 sections. The first part is going to be our actual sleeve, and then the second part is going to be creating our bow and attaching it to our coffee sleeve to create our finished project. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. And before we do, I just want to tell you, these clipboards come in super handy. You can get I got this one at Kirkland's, but they have them everywhere, Target, and sometimes you can get them in the dollar bins. But it just, if I'm checking off rows with a pencil, it makes it super easy. But it also just keeps everything right in my face, because normally I'm not knitting on a table, I'm knitting on my couch, and I want to be comfortable and I want it to be all right here. So clipboards come in handy. Not a necessary thing, but you know, I like them. Okay, so remember how to count our cast on stitches. A little short trick that I like to do, if this is a small project, but if you're creating a project that requires 40 stitches or 60 stitches or even more, what I do is I count by 10. So like for this one, in order to count how many cast on stitches we need, we're going to wrap it around. Okay, so I'm going to hold it there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, and I would stop at 10. And then what I do is Go like this, and now that's 20, and then that's 30, and then that's 40. So that just gives you a good estimate of how much you need. But we only need 16, so I'm gonna go at like 20 here. So I'm gonna pull that apart, and that's about how much yarn we're gonna need to cast on. And then if you wanna give it a little extra, you can, because you can always snip it off. So we're gonna do our slip knot. We're not gonna go over stitches too much because we kind of already talked about that in the last few videos. So, all right, we got our first cast on. We need to make 16. So there's 2, 3, 4. Oh, goodness. Let's make sure you have plenty of working yarn here too. I like to keep it nice and loose. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 6 more, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Okay, so that was actually a pretty good estimate because we have about a 6-inch tail. Might be a little longer, but that's what we want, at least a 6-inch tail to weave in at the end. Okay, so now you can grab your row counter if it makes it easier for you. This is mine. It's just a cheapo one I got on Amazon. So for our first row, it says to knit across. So we're just gonna knit. Remember to give yourself some slack with your yarn so that it's not pulling. Kind of push your stitches down here. All right, and we're gonna knit across this whole first row. All right, here we go. All right, can you believe you're knitting? I know it's kind of crazy. I'm gonna stand up because it's really hard for me to like sit and knit like on this table. It's kind of weird. Not used to this angle. All right. Okay, we're just going all the way across. Remember, not too tight, not too loose, just kind of a nice medium gauge there. Okay. All right, so now we've created our first row. We are going to click. Is it locked? It's probably unlocked. Yes. Okay, got to unlock it. Now we're going to click 1. So now we know we've created and completed our first row. Now for the second row, we're going to knit 3, purl 10, knit 3. Okay, so that's what creates this garter edging so that your project isn't curling up. Okay, so for these, we're going to knit 3, okay, and then if you remember for purling, we always bring our yarn back to the front. So here's where we're going to see for knitting, we're in the back. We're going to bring this around to the front, and we're going to going through the front of the stitch now and purl till there's 3 stitches left. So we're going to purl, purl, purl. I'm not sure if you can hear my kids stomping up above me, but they are. Oh, and now they're scraping something. Awesome. Thank you, children. The joys of having kiddos at home while you're trying to craft. I'm just kidding. They're okay. I'll keep them. Okay, now we get to the end of our row. We've got 3 stitches left on our left needle. Now we're going to bring it back and we're going to knit those 3 stitches. Okay. I'm going to go through these 2 rows one more time, and then I'm going to let you guys work at your own pace, and then we will meet back at the end of the pattern. Okay. So that's 2. Now, you can totally do this, and if you want to just set it back to 0, you can do that. For me, though, I mean, you obviously know this is your right side. Remember we talked about the pretty knit side is the right side and the bumpy side is the wrong side. So we know that our right side is going to be a row 1 and our wrong side is going to be a row 2. If you want to continue to go through these rows like this, that's fine. Or if you just want to completely repeat rows 1 and 2, and just know that this is your right side, row 1, and row 2 is your wrong side, that is okay as well. Okay, so we're going to knit all the way across again. We're going back to row 1 here. I just find it a little bit easier to do it that way than to trying to keep count, because this is such a repetitive pattern. There's really no point in keeping track of all the different rows other than rows 1 and 2. Oh, anybody else's allergies terrible today? Well, if you're watching this in like 5 years, then I don't really know. Who knows? Okay, so we're almost to the end. Going, going, going. Going, going, going. Okay, now we're at the end here. We're going to turn our work. We know we're completed row 1. Now we're going to get to our knit 3. So yarn around the back, knit 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we get to purl 10. And then we'll have 3 left on our left needle. Okay. Okay, almost to the end here. And one more. Okay, so you know you're at the end when you got 3 stitches left on your left needle. We bring the yarn back, and now we're going to knit these last 3. And you can kind of see your pattern starting to take form, which is exciting. So we're going to flip it over to the right side and see there's your bumpy side. So that's exciting. Okay, so now I'm going to work through this a little quicker, and we are going to continue these 2 rows. And I'm going to get to a point where it's pretty close to the 8 inches like the author says, and then we're going to wrap it around our cup and see if it's a good fit. So yeah, go ahead and work at your own pace here, and I'll meet you back towards the end of the video. So I have completed most of the project here, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit, obviously with the time lapse there, you couldn't really see me with my little mistakes that I was making, because even I still make mistakes, but I just wanted to show you real quick. I'm going to go ahead and complete a knit row. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to show you what I found to be happening and what might happen with you guys. So first on this knit row, this second stitch, because these first 3 stitches you're working in a garter stitch, so you're working with a bump here, right? That's your purl stitch that direction. So you're knitting into this. Now it can be very easy to go into this. Oops, sorry. It can be very easy to go underneath into that loop. Okay, you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you're staying up here in this top loop. So we're going to knit through those. So sometimes that it gets a little wonky. Just go nice and slow there if you have to. Okay, I'm going to knit all the way across. Knit, knit, knit. And then I'm going to show you what I had to do. And sometimes when I got to the back side, when it was the knit 3, purl 10, I would just get in a hurry and I would either knit and knit and knit and not stop, or I would just purl from the beginning. So if your mind starts to wander, just take it back out. But I'm going to show you how to rip out your stitches. I think it's also called frogging, but you can rip them out if you do accidentally knit instead of purl or vice versa. Okay, so here we are on the back side. This is the wrong side. So we knit our first stitch. We knit the first 3 actually, right? So I'm gonna knit, and now here is where I would find that again, when you're going on this garter stitch, it's really easy to go up underneath into that loop, okay? That is something you don't want to do. You wanna make sure you're only going through this loop up here, the stitch that's at the top, not through the purl bump from the last stitch on the other side, okay? So that I would, or even sometimes I would find myself doing this where it would go like in between there. So you just gotta really make sure when you're working in garter stitch that you get through the actual stitch and not through that purl bump or through the other side. So we knit, and then here I would be like, oh, okay, I'm thinking about what I need to do after this video. I need to do dishes, and I would keep knitting, and I'm like, oh, shoot. Here again. See, I'm trying to go through there, but so I'm knitting. Oh, darn. I created 3 extra knit stitches when they were supposed to be purls. Okay, so there's a really simple way to do this. Just put a little bit of pressure here on this yarn, and then you'll see here that this, if you go through this top loop here from, if you look at the right side, it's that top loop. You're just going to put your needle in through this hole right here, okay? And then you're just going to pull that stitch back off, okay? Well, let me show you that again. Okay, so from this way, you're going in through that bottom loop, and you're going to pull this one off, and then it pulls your working yarn back out. Okay, now then I can go back and switch to my purls, and we're going to go this way, all the way across, purling, purling, purling. Okay, now let's say I wanted these to be knit stitches. Oh, shoot. So from here, we're on the purl side. You can see this loop a little bit easier. You can go in this way and just pull it off. Boom, okay? So you go in through this way, but I find it to be a little hard because there's this stitch right here. So sometimes you can go in whichever direction is easiest for you. You can go in this way. Let's say you did do it this way. Your stitch is leaning a little bit to the wrong side, and you can see like this one is purling this way. You can just take it off and put it on the right way, and then it's leaning the proper lean. Okay, so then we'll go back to our pattern. We're gonna finish this up. We're gonna purl to the last 3, and then we're gonna knit, and then we're gonna bind off. Okay, and then in the next video, we are going to talk about creating our little bow and attaching that. So here we go. We're gonna finish our last 3. Okay. All right, so I'm done. Okay, what you do to measure your work, and you're gonna want to measure as you go along. I mean, I can eyeball things now just because I've been knitting for a while, and I can kind of, you know, estimate how to, and sometimes I use like my thumb, and I'll just go boop, 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 just as a quick reference. So I'm being lazy, but so we've got our measuring tape. And you don't go from way up here, okay? You're going from the bottom of that stitch row. So you're going right here on the edge of the needle when you're measuring, okay? So make sure your work is nice and flat. I mean, if it's like this, obviously, and you know, stockinette stitch still curls a little bit. The garter stitch on the edging does help it, but I mean, stockinette stitch is just, it's super stretchy and it does tend to curl a little bit. So that's normal. Okay. So we put this up here, and we just kind of gently flatten it, and look, we're right at 8 inches, which is what our author suggested. And then you can also take your cup and wrap it around like so, and it's gonna stretch, okay? So you want it to be a little stretchy because after you use it a couple times, it is gonna stretch out, and then you'll just wash it, and then it'll get its form back a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to bind off. And we did do a video on binding off, so I'm going to do it quickly. And then we are going to get back to the project and create our bow in the next video. So let's go ahead and let's bind off. I'll do it sort of quickly. So we knit 2. And remember, we do these loosely so that they're easier to slip. And then you slip it over, boom. Okay, there's always 2 on your right needle. Then you slip it. Remember, knit loosely. Okay, so we're gonna do this all the way across. Okay. And this gets easier with time. Again, certain fibers, and if you're holding your yarn too tight or you're creating your knits too tight, this can be super difficult. And sometimes, and I'm not discouraging you from buying cheaper knitting needles, because, you know, absolutely don't go buy, you know, $100 needles if you don't know if you're going to stick with it. But the cheaper needles sometimes are duller at the tips, and it's hard to get in these tiny spaces. And, you know, it just makes the binding off a little bit harder. So to do these more precise things with your knitting. So, okay, we're almost to the edge here. Remember, keep it loosely. Slip that over this way. And we're just doing it in pattern because this is stockinette stitch. So we're knitting across and we're binding off in knit. So if you were doing a rib stitch, you would knit and then purl and then slip that stitch over. Okay, our last 2. All right. Okay. So we're going to complete that last one. And remember, don't pull this through there. We're going to leave that up there. You're going to leave a long tail so that we can sew our project together in the next video. Okay, so let's leave about, I would say, you know, 10, 12 inches should be fine. If you want to leave it a little longer in case you goof up, that's okay too. Okay, so we're going to stop here for this video and join me in the next one, and we will bind our project together, and we will weave in our ends, and then we will create our bow and attach it.